Anyway, watch the Disco Elysium. Oh yeah, sure. Where to go? Can you link it? Oh, here.
Women. Wow! A demographic that David Cage doesn't know how to write. They tend to lack agency, only exist to become an unnecessary romantic interest, or become an excuse to show off some assets on screen. Speaking of which, Madison Paige. A character who hides behind the veneer of a strong female character, but in actuality, merely exists to show off some other stuff. Now, I'm not a prude or anything like that. I like me a good butt. But context matters. Like if your character is Bayonetta or Catherine, the intent is clear. So when something sexually provocative appears on screen, you have to wonder, why? What's this titillation for? Does it make sense for the character? Is this relevant to the story? Does it fit the mood of the game? Is this one of them volleyball games or a pizza delivery indie film?
Wait, I know where the volleyball game is. Feel free to make your character as
sexy as you want, as long as it fits the context and the character's personality. But the problem with Madison is that she doesn't have any personality. And since she doesn't have a personality, she doesn't feel like a character who acts
only has pussinality.
Situation she's tossed into. Rather, she feels more like a doll, being puppeted to do whatever the director feels like at the time. She stripteases in this scene to get info from a drug lord, and she gets drugged and then restrained in some guy's basement. And she's introduced in this scene where she attempts to evade
I totally forgot about the part where she was restrained in the basement. Oh yeah, the rapey... Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Underwear in the same scene where you can get her to shower. These ideas aren't inherently bad, since awful situations are featured in many well-beloved media, but when you consider the context and how they're all in service of this bland character, then it makes these scenes appear tasteless. Madison never self-reflects whenever these things happen to her, so it appears that she merely shrugs off these scary scenarios like it's nothing. And because of this lack of self-reflection in a serious story, this woman's struggles ends up saying nothing. She isn't a manipulative femme fatale or a victim of abuse with a story to tell, she's just characterless. If you want to make a character that exudes sex, who finds themselves in troubling situations, make sure it's saying something in the story.
Wait, that's spoiling Bayonetta 2.
So, let's take a look at Disco Elysium's Claudia, who's quite a crucial character. Throughout the game, you're under the impression that the hanged man was killed because he forced himself upon her, and how he died was that a group of men dealt with this offender themselves. This is because the police of Martinez were seen as incompetent, so they took matters into their own hands. To further justify their actions, said man was a part of the Crenel, which is a military contractor equipped with gear that feels out of this world, who have a reputation of taking advantage of their authority. You see where this is going. But when you finally interview Claudia, you find out that the Crenel hire was
Please teach your chat that Cage is a piece of garbage. I'm tired of Moon viewers gargling his balls. It's so I mean Moon, it's because Moon is such a big fan of David Cage, and I only played Beyond Two Souls because I suddenly remembered that it's his favorite game and I wanted to check it out for myself.
A consensual
I wanted to see what he really liked about it.
And it turns out he was a decent guy. So that means, if he didn't do the thing we thought he did, what really killed him? The autopsy shows that the hanging doesn't match up with his cause of death, so why are these guys so willing to take a bullet for her? Why the cover-up? As these questions begin to circle your head and you interview the relevant parties, you feel like you're getting a grasp on who this Claudia person is. Through what your skills tell you, the game is highlighting her ability to charm people. There's a seductive yet playful attitude to her without seeming overly aloof. She'll reminisce about how fond she was of the hanged man, be grounded when the tone shifts, and then laugh and press on your failed attempts at flirtation.
I want to have fuck with you.
The words have already left your mouth.
I want to have fuck with you.
That's not even how words are used. What did you say? Come on, say it again. Come on, man. Freddy, please. One more time. Goddamn right you did. You crazy asshole, you. What kind of cup are you?
But despite her charm, you can tell that she's been through a lot. And she's been drowning herself in sex and drugs since this seems to be her only form of escapism. Something our disco hero is all too familiar with. So this is what the game is attempting to say with sex and Claudia. It's a form of escapism, liberty, and power. She's a sexually enticing person, at least compared to most folks in Martinez, and Claudia uses it to her advantage. Not for overtly malicious reasons, but to mostly protect herself, whether it be from the cops or Crenell. She's not a saint exactly, but she's doing what she can to survive, much like everybody else in Martinez. And you get to see
there's
her
only two
charm in
types of
action
women.
as characters become affectionate
Whore
and
or
protective,
mother.
and unsurprisingly, her charms work on you too.
Soft, light brown eyes look back at you, directly into the space behind your eye sockets. You see the smoke rise from between her painted red lips. She's beautiful. I have bad news for you. You know these guys? Who? Me? Yes, you. He's talking about you, you boring stiff. You too. Me? What did I do? These guys are compromised. She's got them singing along to her tune. The little bleeps and bloops you trust for info, you can't trust them anymore.
This is one of my favorite moments in the game, having Volition to step in to say that we've been compromised because of her natural charm. Raffi is just as fallible as every other guy, and believing my skills up until this point meant I was in his shoes. And I found that interesting. I found Disco Elysium's use of a sensual character interesting both narratively and mechanically. Narratively, this is just one of many crazy twists and turns that enhances her story, which mechanically makes me second guess every bit
I
of
want to
info
see
she
the part where he
provides,
shits
which
on
makes
David
me hyper
Cage.
aware of my dialogue options. And I can only feel this
Wait,
way
featuring
if the character
allegations?
feels like a real person. And everything about Claudia, including her sensuality and charm, feels real. Whereas Madison Page's charm feels forced and inauthentic.
Charm
her
where?
attempts at seduction fall flat because her personality doesn't call for it. And her personality doesn't call for it because she doesn't have a personality. As mentioned previously, she doesn't react to her situations in any sort of way that says anything about her. She kinda thinks of a solution, and any sort of thought process or second guessing that appears
Wait, now that I think about it, Jodie doesn't really have a personality either. She's just sad and depressed, but has no personality.
Is underwritten, which leads me to believe that David Cage didn't take her thoughts into consideration. The most she does when coming to this striptease solution is her going, "Darn it, there's gotta be something to get me out of this sticky situation." Whew, what a creep. Instead of being an interesting power play like in Basic Instinct, or a sex scene with a great character motivation like in True Detective, Madison's nudity feels more like the director being a pervert. Which is fine, being a pervert is fine, depending on the context, but not in this kind of story.
Personality is just girl failure.
Much in this kind of story? I guess you could say Madison's lack of dramatic weight makes her look more confident, but doesn't that make her less interesting? Isn't the tagline, "How far would you go to save someone you love?" Wouldn't exploring her inner conflict as to why she's doing this for a guy she just met coincide with this tagline? Why aren't there stronger visuals to convey hesitation, similar to how Ethan hesitates when cutting off his finger? Or something to convey Madison is freaking out, like
Because
Norman's
David
vision
Cage
distorting.
doesn't see
The game
women as
itself
people.
has examples to convey the emotional state of a character, but none of it is used on Madison beyond a basic struggle, a poorly delivered line, or a jokey response.
Maybe if I told him I'm a lesbian. Oh, this is no time to start getting funny.
Fantastic delivery. Tonally appropriate. FBI trainee Clarice Starling is terrified by a guy behind a damn window. What more for this untrained journalist? And when Madison gets out of her sticky situations, why isn't there a moment of self-reflection? Why isn't there a scene of her thinking about what she's doing, a monologue or soliloquy to really characterize this person? Give
David
more focus on
Cage!
how having to do this makes her feel sick. Give moments of hesitation and second-guessing more time. This is supposed to be a game with social emotions, right? This isn't Big Booty Bonanza number 3, Requiem of My Rectum, so why doesn't Madison take
What
a moment to
is
reflect on
Big
what she's done
Booty
or what she's
Bonanza?
gone through? Being drugged up or knocked out and then waking up in someone's basement to then fight for your life is quite a traumatizing experience. Surely, this is a setup to explore inner conflict, right? Nope, this is just a cheap way to shove some tits in the face of players, and I mean this literally. You can even see her taking a shower with her tits out. In the same scene, she gets ambushed. This is totally a vital character moment, right?
3?
I mean,
Requiem
who
for
hasn't
my
had a
rectum?
dream where you sensually bathe yourself with a sudden epiphany to start a YouTube channel? But what about Madison's romance with Ethan, you might say? Surely that manages to say... Nope, it doesn't say anything. If you played any David Cage game at all, you know that every attempt at romance has failed miserably, and Heavy Rain is no different.
I'm a David
Madison
Cage
takes care
expert
of Ethan, a stranger,
at this point.
because he's hurt. Cool. Then she keeps coming back out of concern. Makes sense. And then they start slapping meat. Okay, bit fast, but whatever. It's not like they're getting married or woo, now they're married. A trophy wife that completely hinges on whether or not Madison has sex with Ethan, as long as Ethan says yes to her advances. That's it. That's the one thing that determines their relationship. Who cares about having organic developments in a relationship, right? Let's just jump right
favorite
into marriage.
relation game-
We've had sex once, and you take care of me when I'm sad.
Dark
That's
Urge,
their dynamic.
a star
Madison
game.
falls in love with Ethan, who is a sad boy because he lost his boy. Oh boy. Women truly are simple creatures. Thanks, Vince Kelvin.
Every hot girl that you see at some point was a little baby wearing diapers, and at some point will be an elder woman.
Why is every Quantic Dream romance rushed and underdeveloped? Why is sex and nudity always used as a cheap way to deepen a badly written relationship? Up until Detroit Become Human, Cage has had a flawless streak of needless shower scenes, and not only that,
Yo,
but
what did I fucking say? And pissing!
scenes of
Oh wait, Beyond Two Souls didn't have pissing.
women just walking around
That's
in their
probably because the actor said no.
underwear. And all of them are poorly written, including Madison Page. She's a cheap sexual thrill
Oh
and
wait,
a shower.
no, she did piss. Oh yeah, in the snow. I was thinking about a toilet. She did piss. There's a pissing.
Love interest. And to repeat myself, there ain't nothing wrong with a character who's sexual or who's seen as a love interest. Passing the Bechdel test isn't required for me to enjoy a female character. But when moments of sexuality and romance are displayed without much reason, then I'm gonna roll my eyes and think this character is pointless. She's a character that lacks character beyond being a pair of boobs to gawk
Beyond
at,
Two
and
Souls.
a trophy wife for our guy protagonist. The end. But you might
David
think,
Cage.
hey, it's just harmless titillation, no harm done, right? And I personally would have left it at that, but once you hear about the Quantic Dream allegations, then it makes all this harmless perversion a lot more gross. So let's run through a handful of these allegations. These allegations appeared in January 2018, claiming that there was an unhealthy workplace culture embedded at Quantic Dream. There was inappropriate behavior, staff exploitation, and a culture where misogynistic and racist jokes thrived. This included 600 photos of employees' faces being photoshopped on Nazis and porn stars, and they were described as homophobic, misogynistic, racist, or simply profoundly vulgar. They were shared around the workplace. And in November 2019, Quantic Dream was found guilty of not following through on security obligations, as the likenesses of employees were used in photo montages without their consent. One employee in particular was photoshopped doing a Nazi salute. Before being found guilty, the Quantic Dream higher-ups denied employees did this, only then to say that they claimed they were unaware of the photos circulating the workplace. But then, supposedly, employees were wrongfully dismissed because they brought attention to the photos being shared around. The letters of dismissal for these employees were, I quote, all identical, entirely copy-paste, of which only the name of the employee changed, with always the same mention, differences of opinion with the management, including in the case of self-dismissal. Check out this timeline if you want to know
What?
more. But
Holy
let it be
fuck.
known that one of the French
a lot.
publications that added to this timeline failed to disclose their sources, and as such have been charged with libel. But for certain, the existence of the photos and the self-firing have been proven. So anything beyond this, take with a grain of salt. Regardless of the situation, the company's image has been tainted. Just look at these guys and what they said in court. Not the greatest choice of words if you're trying
Yeah,
to
see,
win
in my games, all women are whores. At Quantic Dream, the RAM, we do not make games for F word.
over public opinion, especially if this isn't your first controversy? Remember that time there was a 3D model with nipple textures of Elliot Page in Beyond Two Souls? While only accessible through a debugged PlayStation 3, it led to some headlines and a lawsuit that was eventually dropped at some point. Or what about that time that David Cage spent an entire year collecting pictures of Elliot Page in preparation for Beyond Two Souls? To quote this piece from Kotaku, there were hundreds of photos, a wealth of reference points at David's disposal.
Wait, I said that as a joke, and he, like, at one point I was like, oh, quick, we need photos of feet. We need photos of their feet for reference. And he actually had so much.
One can interpret this as passionate work ethic. It's more seen as creepy. This is especially heartbreaking since Elliot was experiencing depression, anxiety, and panic attacks as early as 2006 due to having to conform to gender roles that he was constantly casted for. And Jodie embodying a poorly written feminine stereotype most likely added to this miserable experience that they were going through.
I guess that's when you go with
Not
the
the
guy.
greatest look for Cage, who spent an entire year researching their main star. Add the allegations of a sexist workplace and many other things, then Cage's reputation is not in a great spot. So much so that the Star Wars game that they've announced is struggling to find the staff to work on their game. But despite attempts at fixing the company's reputation, Cage's emotional outbursts and Fondomir's contradictions are holding back Quantic Dream's potential.
Despite political overtones, David Cage says Detroit is mostly about androids.
David self-insert Cage.
Racism, any shape or form, shameless, Black Lives Matter, we're all equal regardless of skin color.
Contradictions are holding back Quantic Dream's potential. And even if you can
He
disassociate
seems like the kind of person that says that would also say all lives matter and be like, I don't see race.
company's history,
And then like not understand. Thanks, Chuland.
it's hard to see these scenes as nothing more than cheap titillation or a poorly done romance.
Titillation?
At best, his preferences
Is that a
become
real word for,
unnecessary
like, titties?
distractions that seep through his work. And at worst, these sort of scenes have undeniable tones of creepiness. At least more so than usual. Want to have a character be sexy or charming? Go for it. Do you want to put
Titillation?
sexual assault in your story? Well, there better be a good reason, cause ooh boy if you don't pull it off, it's just gonna come off as tasteless for the ignorant and creepy.
Dude,
if you have
David
the
Cage
shady
has a thing for girls with short hair getting R-worded.
history of
Happens in like for every game.
allegations. Anyway, back to the main video. Assuming it's out, check the comments description or this thing if that's the case. Christ, pardon me. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me because this Disco Elysium video is taking for.
Yeah, he didn't catch the pissing, unfortunately. He didn't catch the pissing. I caught that. I noticed that.